Hi there. Today we're going to discuss percent of change, objectives and standards. Today we're going to find percent of change, and then we're also going to find percent error. The vocabulary you need to know today is percent of change, percent of increase, percent of decrease, and percent error. Percent of change. A percent of change is a ratio that compares the change in a quantity to the original amount. So as an equation, the percent of change is the amount of change over the original amount. When you compare the amount of change to the original amount in a ratio, you are finding a percent of change. The percent of change is based on the original amount. If the original quantity is increased, then it's a percent of increase. If the original quantity is decreased, then it is called a percent of decrease. In these two equations they just explained, percent of increase is the amount of increase over the original amount, and the percent of decrease is the amount of decrease over the original amount. How to calculate the percent of change. Step 1, find the amount of change. So what you're going to do is just subtract the two amounts. Step 2, calculate the amount of increase or decrease over the original amount. Step 3, change it to a percent, so we're just multiplying times 100. So if the prices or if the change went up, it's an increase. If it went down, that means it's a decrease. Example number 1. Find the percent of change in the cost of gasoline from 1970 to 2010. Round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So for this example, since the 2010 price is greater than the 1970 price, this is considered a percent of increase because it went up. So now we're going to find the amount of increase. We're going to just subtract the two. So $2.95 minus $1.30, that's $1.65. So now we're going to find the percent of increase, the amount of increase over the original amount. And when they talk about the original amount, they're talking about 1970. So we have $1.65, and the original amount was $1.30. We're going to find that decimal value, 1.27, and then our last step is to multiply by 100. So we got 127%. And this is true because the price actually increased over the amount. So the cost of gasoline increased by 127% from 1970 to 2010. Example 2. Yusuf bought a DVD recorder for $280. Now it is on sale for $220. Find the percent of change in the price and round it to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So, since the new price is less than the original price, this is a percent of decrease. Find the amount of decrease. So we're going to subtract our two numbers, 280 minus 220, and that's a change of $60. So now we're going to set up our percent of decrease, which you just put the decrease over the original amount. So we have $60, and the original amount was $280. So after we do that, we're going to get our decimal of 0.21 just about because we rounded. And that equals 21% because we multiplied times 100 to get from a decimal to a percent. So the price of the DVD recorder was decreased about 21%. So when you're restating the answer, it's important that you write the percentage and then you write either it's an increase or a decrease. Percent error. The percent error is a ratio that compares the inaccuracy of an estimate or amount of error to the actual amount. So you're comparing your estimate or your error over the actual amount. So percent error is amount of error over actual amount. You're going to find, finding the percent error is similar to finding the percent of change. Instead of the amount of increase or decrease, you're just finding the amount of the estimate if it's greater or less than the actual amount. Okay? So this is an example. Suppose you guess there are 300 gumballs in a jar, but they're actually 400. So the amount of error between 300 to 400, and then you change that to a percent. So how to calculate the percent of error? Step one, you're going to find the amount of error. So you're going to subtract the two amounts. You're going to calculate amount of error over the original amount. And then you're going to remember to change that decimal to a percent by multiplying times 100. So here's an example. Ahmed wants to practice free throws. He estimates the distance from the free throw line to the hoop and marks it with chalk. He estimates it as 13.5 feet, but the actual amount is 15 feet. So we're going to find out what percentage was he off in his estimation. So we're going to find the amount of error. So we subtract the two amounts, 15 minus 13.5 feet. That equals 1.5 feet. So he was off by 1.5 feet. So now we're going to find the percent error, which is the amount of error over the actual amount. So we have 1.5, that was our error, the actual amount, and usually it'll say the word actual, so that'll help you out a little bit, over 15. So that equals 0.1, and then by multiplying it times 100, we got 10%. So the percent error was 10%. Here's just one more example before we go. Morgan estimates that it will take 12 minutes to download a movie from an online movie store. It actually took 15.5 minutes to download the movie. Find the percent error, round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So again, that word actually is the amount that's going to go in our denominator. So we're going to find the percent error, which is the amount of error over the actual amount. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the amount of error. So it actually took 15.5. She estimated 12, so that's a difference of 3.5. After we do that, we have to find the percent of error. So 3.5, and the original was 15.5. So that equaled just about 0.225. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that into a percent by multiplying times 100. So I got 22.5. When I look back at my problem, it'll say round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. So Morgan's percent of error is about 23%. So today we calculated the percent of change and the percent of error. I hope that video is helpful. Thank you. Bye.